I'd like to thank you for inviting me on the show. It's such an honour to be here, and I'd just like to say that when I'm not playing Xbox with my mate Thor, I really like to listen to my favourite podcast, Pop Culture Pasta. Hey Dave, I'm thinking about doing another revolution. Do you want to join up? I might need some help with organising the pamphlets though.
Pop Culture Pastor.
I think, you guys, that I need to have a what are those things where you friends have like a little party for an intervention.
That's a complete opposite.
I was going to say a
It's
party is
it's
an
sort of like
odd
a
way
party,
to describe
right?
it.
Where you tell me to stop playing Marvel Snap.
I feel like that's a Danielle thing.
Marvel Snap is genius. It's genius because they make collecting new cards impossible. The progression is so slow, and you feel like you got to keep playing it.
I don't have the urge.
I don't have a problem. You have a problem.
I mean, I'm getting all the cards.
Cody's above it all.
And then you just dig. You put little digs at me. You know you got cards that I want and that I can't get. And I play twice as much as you.
I can't trade them to you, or I would.
But they can't do that. That's what makes it genius. If they enabled trading, people would be selling them.
Oh, yeah.
There'd be people do sell Marvel Snap accounts, by the way. You can buy a fully stocked Marvel Snap account with all the cards.
They used to do that with Pokemon Go back in the day.
Do they? Or did they?
Yeah.
That's weird. If you got to spend money, like that just seems weird. Although they try to get you to spend money in game.
Yeah, and with like Pokemon Go, different areas of the world had different Pokemon that you could catch. So
Okay.
if you bought like the Australian account of Pokemon and then started catching them in Chinoot, then
Okay.
then you're getting all the Pokemon.
Jackson is like choking to death.
I don't know what
wrong
he's
too.
doing besides
too.
ruining great podcasting.
This is the Pop Culture Pastor podcast. Marvel Snap aside, if you're not playing Marvel Snap on your smartphone, then you have no idea what we're talking about.
Think about it, but don't get addicted.
Yeah, Jackson's dying. Do we need to get
Do we need
to get the EMTs in here?
Water, my friend, water.
He doesn't have any.
You gotta come prepared.
Oh,
Well, when I'm a special guest, I demand to be treated as such.
oh man, yeah. We don't do that. We're we're pastors.
Our bad.
Someone get this man some water. All right. It's the Pop Culture Pastor podcast. My name's Dave. Cody's here. Jackson, our goofy movie geek of the round table.
Yes.
That's his specialty. That's what he brings. He actually has a lot of specialties. He was formerly on our WCW Wrestling Rewind. Be Kind Rewind. So Jackson's here. Hello, Jackson.
Thank you.
and our animated movie rating
Yeah.
episode.
He's a man of many talents, but for this episode, he's going to be our goofy movie geek of the round table.
I believe I'm now the Four Timers Club.
Oh, yeah.
Have you been on 4 times?
Tombstone,
Oh, I forgot about Tombstone.
animated movies, WCW, and Tonight.
Okay.
Four-time
settle down.
guest.
First thing we talk about here on this here podcast is always news. And man, there's a ton of news.
Is there?
Like, oh yeah, lots of things are happening out there. Last night on the Golden Globes, the first blow was struck in comic book movie awards. First ever for an actor to win a Golden Globe or any of the acting awards for their work in a comic book movie. Angela Bassett won the Golden Globe last night for Best Supporting Actress.
Is that the first for Marvel?
No, it's the first it's the first.
I was going to say Heath Ledger definitely won an Oscar. I don't know if he won the Golden Globe, but he definitely won an Oscar.
Okay, of the current runs.
I'm just saying.
I think.
Would you put Angela Bassett's performance in Wakanda Forever up there with Heath?
No.
That was way too quick.
I mean, it was good, and I would say it's Golden Globe worthy. But like, come on now.
Come on now, what?
Come on, what?
I think we all know that Heath Ledger's performance in The Dark Knight,
I don't know what you're talking about.
phenomenal.
Playing the part of Cody this episode will be Dave.
Yeah.
I'm just going to argue with Cody.
Rude.
Oh, she won.
Yeah.
She beat out Carrie Condon for her role in The Banshees of Inisherin, Jamie Lee Curtis for her role in Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I still need to see.
Yep, ditto.
Dolly De Leon for her role in Triangle of Sadness, and Carrie Mulligan in She Said. I only recognize a couple of those names, so
Yeah.
I must be out of the loop. I do know Ki Hai Kwan won.
Brendan Fraser did not.
We're gonna get to that. But Angela Bassett, there we go. Wakanda Forever got an acting award.
It wasn't.
You don't seem excited.
Wasn't
Cody's
for
pretty
script
upset
writing.
about it.
It wasn't for script writing? How dare you? How dare you? It's a good thing Jackson's here and that he has appeared on an episode devoted to wrestling, because we've a lot to talk about with the wrestling. What in the world is going on with the WWE? So stuff started popping off last night as we're recording this. We're recording this on a Wednesday. You guys aren't going to hear this till Friday. But Tuesday night just turned into a social media storm. There was all this speculation. Well, first of all, what's her name? Resigned. Stephanie McMahon resigned. And you're thinking, okay. And she had a real nice like statement that made you think that nothing was up until something was up. Then there was this speculation and all sorts of rumors that the WWE was going to be sold to Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. Someone help me out. What does that even mean?
I assume that the Saudi government purchases businesses such as Live Golf, and now trying to purchase a WWE.
So public investment fund, is this, am I to surmise that the Saudi government is like, has their own, like, this is like a trust, right? Mm-hmm. Isn't this what trusts do? Like you invest in them and then they invest in things.
Yeah.
Is this what's happening? Their government invests in, they bought the WWE?
Allegedly, it's still
okay. So like
on
the
who
tweet,
you talk to.
The initial tweet that reported that got taken down. Everybody was in a frenzy. So Steve Muehlhausen was the first guy to report the news of the sale, but he's already deleted the tweet less than 24 hours after posting. But it's been echoed by a large swath of what we would call wrestling media. Vince McMahon came back. Okay, Jackson, can you explain any of this? Do you know what's going on?
Not near as much as I probably should. I know he stepped down amid controversy. We'll leave it at that. And then his son-in-law and daughter took over, and there was another guy that was co-CEOs. And then I heard he had wanted to come back, and nobody was too excited for that because it was finally a breath of fresh air, and
it was actually good for once.
Oh, man.
Then all of a sudden it became, well, he's going to come back, but he'll not be on air. He'll be on the board of directors, and it won't change anything. And then, as you mentioned, Stephanie resigns. Triple H is replaced, demoted, something of the sort.
Well, they took a picture. Didn't they take a picture, like a selfie where they were at AEW, which is like a competing wrestling? I saw that on Twitter just before we started recording.
Oh, snap.
They were
they
were like at an event and they took one of these selfies and they were in the crowd and it was clearly an AEW event.
Well, you're breaking news to us.
Oh, okay. Well,
we don't have the computer in front.
I don't know if it was a current picture, but it looked current. Question for someone who's like not currently into wrestling. Why doesn't Vince McMahon just sell the company and ride off into the sunset? Why? Like, how old is he? How come he can't just let go and just bask in his millions?
I mean, I would think this defines him. Without this, what is he? You know?
Oh.
And
that's sad.
I think he probably just wants to fall over in his chair one day and get carried out.
Like the meme.
Yeah.
I think that I read that he's like 83.
Oh my goodness.
Is he that old?
Okay, he took roids, right? Didn't he take roids?
I would imagine so.
How is he 83 years old? How come
Let me double check.
We lose
that.
the greats and Vince McMahon is still around?
Well, for the longest time, he didn't really show his age, but now he just kind of looks like a half melted candle, and
it is scary.
I've never heard that. Those
Wait, he's
scripted
only
words.
77. I aged him by 6 years.
Well,
My
he
bad.
looks like he's 804. But okay, yeah, the WWE is a solid gold mess right now, and that's so fascinating to me. The whole Saudi government thing.
they're apparently buy it and they're going to take it back private. So,
Like United States, we like buy and purchase military things. The Saudi government's out there buying wrestling companies.
well, they've been funding pay-per-views for several years, and they'll basically tell Vince McMahon, this is what we want, and he'll put on shows over there, and they make a ton of money. And
Really?
It is.
So wrestling's big over there.
It's Goldberg Fest. That's what it is at Saudi Arabia.
They like Goldberg,
they like Goldberg, they like Hulk Hogan.
but Goldberg's Jewish.
He is. But if you can get him to wrestle for 5 minutes, spear someone, and then pin him,
Beat Cody's favorite character.
and Cody Rampage.
That is fascinating. That is fascinating. I thought you guys were messing with me. Goldberg is big in Saudi.
Oh, yeah. Like, so his contract's just matches, like how many matches he'll
Like
wrestle.
5 matches a year or something.
And one of them is always Saudi.
My brain is
I
just.
think the Prince hasn't watched WWE for like 30 years, though, because he wanted Yokozuna, and they had to tell him he's been dead for about...
Yeah. Sad deal, Yoko.
Yes.
Pretty much like, yeah, if you haven't watched for 30 years, he's going to have a lot of sad news. Randy Macho Man's gone, and, Scott Hall. Interesting side note, Kevin Nash is going to be at Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City.
That's what
might
we're excited
tip the
about.
scales for me. That might be a...
Yeah, you're coming.
So Jungle Boy was what tipped the scales for me. I'm like, we have Luke Perry, son?
Who's Jungle Boy?
Let's do this.
Who's Jungle Boy?
Go for it. You brought it up. This
He
all
is
you.
an AEW wrestler.
He's going to be at Comic-Con?
Is his name Jack?
Jungle Boy Jack Perry.
Yeah.
He's really Luke Perry's son?
Yep.
Yes.
That is wild. This is why my brain is just like an overload right now with the wrestling.
If Danhausen would be there, oh my goodness, I'm spending all my money.
I need a documentary with all of this information presented to me in an entertaining format. That's,
Get on the PowerPoint.
That's what I
Cody.
need. As I said, Ki-Hai Kwan won a Golden Globe last night for his performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Still need to watch it.
Ki-Hai Kwan, who played, of course, Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and, of course, Data in the classic Goonies, my favorite
Slick
movie.
shoes.
Oh, yes. No, not Slick Shoes. One of my favorite movies of all time. He was asked last night, because why wouldn't you? This is like there's questions. I'm sure he was asked all sorts of questions, but there's only one important question. When is Goonies 2 happening? And he had some words to say. He said, quote, "We have the big man here tonight, Steven Spielberg, and I think that's one question that all of us want to ask him." He said, "Honestly, for the last 30 years, we've tried to do a Goonies 2. When I was much younger, I wished it would come to pass because that's the movie I thought I would need to make a comeback. Honestly, we had numerous scripts, but there was not one script that felt like it would be up to what the original was." End quote.
It's hard to do a sequel.
I found that sad that they've wanted to do a movie, because I think that's one of those movies where I think all the original actors have said, like, yeah, I'm up for it. Even
I don't know
like
about the villains. Mama's still around.
No. Mama Fratelli died years ago, but you don't even have to have the same villains. It'd be cool if you brought them back, but I think one of the older son's dead too, right?
I don't think Robert Davi is being welcomed in anybody's good graces.
Oh, is he
right
still
now.
alive, Davi?
Yeah.
I know Joey Pants is still alive. Davi's not.
He's persona non grata. I think he's got some.
He got canceled.
Vaccination opinions and just overall political opinions that.
Well, we don't have to have the Fratellis.
Yeah.
No Fratellis then.
New villains.
But even like, the guy that played Brand and Thanos, ones that have gone on and been real successful, they've even said in the past, like, hey, I'm up for it.
Well, Sean Astin's got nothing.
I was going to say Samwise.
How dare you, sir? Sean Astin was a great character in Stranger Things season 2.
Bob.
And then he died. Spoilers. It's very sad. But yeah, okay. So like I've been motivated by this, by Ki-Hai Kwan's comments, because I have wanted a Goonies 2 for pretty much my whole life. And I thought, this is so sad. He said there've been numerous scripts, but just none of them were up to par.
I'm going to bring up a movie that we did review, A Christmas Story 2, and the dog doo-doo it was.
Okay. I think
that's why you don't do a sequel to classics.
I think God's speaking to me. You ready for this?
Okay.
I've never written anything in my life. I am going to write a story or a script for Goonies 2.
Send it to Steven.
Well, I don't know Steven, but I'll put it on the internet. But I'm serious. Like, I think I could write a good story for Goonies 2. Why are you guys looking at me like that? Are you going to kill my dream? I think I could do it. I could come up with a good story.
You got this.
All right, thank you.
Until you don't have it.
I appreciate that vote of confidence.
I was wondering what the connection between the Golden Globes and A Christmas Story 2 was going to be.
Oh, well, we're just talking about sequels to beloved properties.
Even though I don't care for A Christmas Story.
Cody is just weird.
I listened to that episode.
I love Goonies. Goonies is a classic.
Okay, we need to talk about Gwen Stefani. Gwen Stefani in an interview with Allure. You guys know who Gwen Stefani is, right?
No doubt reunion.
This is not about a No Doubt reunion.
Oh.
I don't think that's happening.
That's a bummer.
In an interview with Allure about her new beauty line, the singer and voice judge looked back on her work inspired by Japan's Harajuku subculture, including your 2004 album, Love Angel Music Baby. There's periods after all those words.
All-time classic.
I love the reading.
Is it? Do you have that album? Love Angel Music Baby. It's like Nuprin. Little,
is that
yellow,
the one
different.
that has If I Were a Rich Girl?
Maybe.
Holla back, girl.
It does have a track called Harajuku Girls. And she has a 2008 fragrance line, Harajuku Lovers. So she's very influenced by Japanese culture.
This is what we call cultural appropriation.
But she said, okay, I'm getting there.
Well,
she said in this interview,
now.
it should be okay to be inspired by other cultures. And then she said, I'm Japanese.
Oh,
In case you're wondering, Gwen Stefani is not Japanese.
that's a bold statement to make.
She did preface the declaration by explaining that her introduction to Japanese culture came courtesy of her Italian-American father, who worked for Japanese corporation Yamaha. Her mother is Irish-American. And she said, that was my Japanese influence, and that was a culture that was so rich with tradition, yet so futuristic, so much attention to art and detail and discipline, and it was fascinating to me. Adding that her father would share stories from the vibrant streets of Harajuku. She soon traveled to the district, which is located in Shibuya, Tokyo. It's known as the center of fashion and youth culture there. And she said, man, I'm Japanese and I didn't know it. And then she reiterated in Allure, I am, What's happening here?
My friend Gwen should not probably say this. She probably should have learned from Rachel Dolezal or whatever.
I'm being a little facetious as I'm delivering the information. I don't really care. I get what she's trying to say. Obviously, you guys know I'm not like all up in arms about cultural appropriation. In fact, I'm like all culture is really appropriation. Really, anything that people like, they will carry into their culture. That's just the way it works.
I mean, I get that, like, oh, I'm really inspired by this culture. Mm-hmm. I want to honor this culture. But when you say I am this culture.
Yeah. She seems to be on that Rachel Dolezal line.
I mean, that would be like me saying, I really like Jewish culture, and I'm just going to make that proclamation now, and I'm not Jewish. I'm not. I can't be Jewish.
Yeah. Do you remember Rachel Dolezal's hair?
I do.
So my daughter, when she was like 2 or 3, had a doll, and it was like it had this really bombastic hair that it looked unnatural on the doll, and so the name of that doll was Rachel Dolezal. That was.
I was waiting for that, or doll is a doll. I can't even say it.
Those were good times. Anyways, yeah. So Gwen Stefani, she kind of just kept reiterating it too. She's faced cultural appropriation accusations in the past, including backlash about her usage of a South Asian bindi, Latin aesthetics in her luxurious music video, and dreadlocks in Sean Paul's Light My Fire. Now, come on. Why can't anybody have dreadlocks? I've seen plenty of white people with dreadlocks.
Chet Hanks.
Did he have dreadlocks?
That's Cody's answer to everything.
The answer is always Chet Hanks,
Yes.
Jackson.
No matter the question.
How can we get Chet Hanks on the pod?
That's a question.
We got to get him on the pod. Do you think he's at San Diego Comic-Con?
I don't know.
This is why we need to be at San Diego Comic-Con.
It's to meet Chet Hanks.
Yes, probably. Among others. But yeah. Anyways, Gwen Stefani's weird. Here's a rumor.
Okay.
I'm interested to see what you guys think about this. There's been a lot of discussions lately about the MCU, Marvel Studios. And
I've heard of it.
who might be their choices to take on the roles in the Fantastic Four.
Or Fantastic Quattro.
It would be Quattro de Fantastica. Anyways,
See?
we're not going to go there. But one of the roles that has inspired the most rumors is the role of Reed Richards, who was played by John Krasinski in Multiverse of Madness. But clearly, there's been enough rumors that, this is true, that they don't want to use John Krasinski, or he doesn't want to be like in a multi-movie deal. So Reed Richards will be someone else. But the new rumor is that they really want and have been talking to Adam Driver. Are you guys, Jackson?
fine.
Are you a
Kylo
comic
Ren?
book guy?
I was in the past. I'm definitely a comic book movie guy, but
Yeah.
not.
So the weird thing is like we can all sit here and be like, oh, Adam Driver is an amazing actor. He's wonderful. But there's something about him that just doesn't seem right for Reed.
And especially with like his past roles, that I think that he carries a little bit of a heaviness, darkness edge to him.
Well, he'd make a great Doctor Doom, but maybe that's a little too on the nose since he was Kylo Ren. And he wore a mask,
But he would actually have a good script. Burn!
Cody's just firing shots at everybody.
I mean, let's be really frank. Driver was the best part about the sequel movies.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren was easily the best character, and he was the best acted. I won't even qualify that statement. Name one person in all three of those movies who's acting half as good as Adam Driver is.
Oh, well, that
would be
eliminates
Poe.
Babu Frick. So
Babu Frick does have a special place in my heart.
Poe would be close.
What, are you kidding
no,
me?
absolutely
No,
not. Absolutely
listen.
not.
I love Oscar Isaac, but that part,
Oscar
that
was
role,
carrying that role.
role was written so bad.
Yeah, and he made it seem decent.
No, he did not.
No.
No,
I'm
he
with
did not.
Dave
That's
on
one of
this
the
one.
worst characters in the trilogy.
Oh, no.
One of the worst characters in the trilogy.
No.
I'm not even taking that back.
Like, I would say all the original characters are the worst
Oh, they're not
played
good.
out.
They're not good. I mean,
except for Luke in
I think Luke
the
is
second
okay.
movie.
I know everyone else gets all butthurt about Luke being the way he is in that movie, but I think he's the most realized character. Han was kind of a. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about Han. Chewie was good.
Chewie was Chewie.
I think Chewie was all right. Leia, oh yeah.
Super Leia.
Listen, she was
Frozen-
using the Force.
Frozen Space Leia.
I don't have as much problems with that scene as a lot of people did, but anyways. So Adam Driver might be the choice for Reed Richards, and I'm sure. Man, it's Marvel. I'm sure it'll be fine. Adam Driver's a great actor. I just don't see him as Reed.
I don't see this coming to fruition just because it is now public knowledge, and this hasn't been announced at a forum before.
Him and like 20 other actors have been rumored for Reed.
And so I'm saying that it's not going to
You
happen.
think Feige just keeps moving on just to mess with them?
I think that he just keeps leaking out fake names.
Well, you leak the name, you see the response, and then you go from there.
Okay, hear me out. Rowan Atkinson as Reed Richards. You
Mr.
know him better
Bean.
as Mr. Bean.
Huzzah!
I knew it. I knew you'd like that choice. Let's move on.
Or Zazu, as I like to refer to him as.
Were you guys fans of Malcolm in the Middle?
Yeah, I was okay with it.
When I couldn't find the remote, sure.
Certainly you guys remember Frankie Muniz.
Of course.
Yes.
National
Agent Cody
treasure.
Banks.
There you go. Agent Cody Banks, Malcolm in the Middle.
It's like the only time my name gets used in cinema.
He announced today that he's set to compete as a full-time race car driver in NASCAR's ARCA Menard series.
I'm concerned by this.
Huh?
I'm concerned by this.
You're concerned by it?
I know that he's raced in the past, but he also had like several mini strokes and doesn't remember being on Malcolm in the Middle because of the mini strokes.
Well, I mean, look, they signed him. He's racing full-time for this race team. He's driving a Ford Mustang for Rhett Jones Racing. And he called the endeavor a childhood dream. He's racing in the ARCA, the Let Go Menard series.
That sounds made up to me, but I'll go, sure.
I'm sorry. I couldn't resist. ARCA, actually, I know something about ARCA. My dad raced a little bit in this series.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Insider information.
Yeah. So like he went around the country and raced in some of these races. But yeah, so like it's like the minor leagues of the big show. You know, it'd be like A-ball.
Yeah. So I know there was like one ARCA race each year that like actually made it to national television, but that's because like some of the big time guys would come and race at it.
Yeah.
And so they would air it, but it would be like during the daytime, during a weekday, and no one would ever watch it. So
Did Junebug race in it?
yes, he did.
Who's Junebug?
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Are you a fan?
When Cody plays racing games, he just screams Junebug every 5 seconds and then
Yep.
slams into you.
What?
Bumping is racing.
That's such a weird.
He's the intimidator.
By the way, it's called rubbing is racing.
No, it's
is the
bumping
line.
now.
Oh, come on. Don't misquote Days of Thunder that bad.
No, I'm bumping.
Okay, so Muniz, you're worried about Frankie Muniz,
Yeah.
but he's actually been racing since 2004. He won a tournament in Long Beach, California. He competed in the Toyota Pro Celebrity races in 2005 and 2011, placing third and second. And it does say it's been more than a decade since he's been behind the wheel competitively.
And I think it was because of the mini strokes that he was having.
There is no mention of the mini strokes. There's no mention of this.
He had mini strokes.
I mean, I
What
believe you.
Wikipedia article did you see that on?
The Frankie Muniz one.
Okay, more news. Are you guys here for a Knives Out Muppets crossover?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Sorry, I got too excited
Jackson
for that.
about jumped out of his chair.
He's all about the Muppets, so it's happening.
Yeah, are you a fan of the Knives Out movies?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
We're still in disagreement over the first and the sequel, which is better.
Which one do you think's better?
I'm giving it to 2, just ever so slightly.
Okay.
I
mean,
love
I'm not
the
going to
first
argue with you.
one, and
I love them both.
I really enjoyed the second one, but I think my enjoyment was just slightly less.
Okay. All right. I dug them both. I think I did say I thought the first one was better on the pod, but I'm not going to complain. They're both wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, there's been a lot of talk online about people wanting a Knives Out Muppets movie, which seems like it's too perfect. Like, it just seems like, oh, that should be a no-brainer. We should have a Benoit Blanc Muppet movie. And Ryan Johnson, director of the Knives Out movie, has now weighed in. He said this: I think those two things have very different rules. You can either have a Benoit Blanc mystery that has Muppets in it, but they'll feel out of place, or you can have a Muppet movie that Benoit Blanc is in, but it'll feel like a Muppet movie. What do you guys think about that?
I'm good with it feeling like a Muppet movie. You have a Muppet movie with Benoit in it.
Yeah, I am too. I like Ryan Johnson, but that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, I think that's the point, Ryan, isn't it? Like, I think what he maybe was, okay, this is going to sound weird because I don't want to speak for Ryan Johnson, but I think maybe what Ryan doesn't realize yet is that I think Benoit Blanc has already transcended his movies.
I agree with that.
I think the character that is Benoit Blanc is like bigger than that. Just like Sherlock Holmes is bigger than the stories he appeared in. Like, you wouldn't think anything of making a Sherlock Holmes Muppet movie, right?
Yeah.
And it being like, if it's a Muppet movie, it'll be kind of jokey.
I feel like Kermit has played Sherlock Holmes.
I feel like he has too. He went on to say, I wouldn't want to compromise either of them. And I feel like in order to make it well, make it work, you'd have to make a choice and compromise one or the other. If I ever make a Muppet movie, I just want to make a great Muppet movie.
I want him to make a Muppet movie.
I do too. I like Ryan Johnson, but then I liked Last Jedi. I know that makes me weird somehow. Jackson, why are you guys looking at each other? Whoa, there's some history here. Let's have it out. What?
I was seeing if Jack liked The Last Jedi.
Jack, where do you stand on The Last Jedi?
I saw those movies and I can't tell you a single thing about any of them.
That's the correct answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can definitely distinctly separate Last Jedi from the other two just because.
So Last Jedi is the second
One
Yes.
where Luke Skywalker projects himself.
Otherwise known as the best one.
Well, the last one, I'm like,
no. No. I saw the last one once in the theater. I'm never watching it again. It was terrible.
So Lucasfilms had a survey at the theater I was showing or that I went to that it was showing at. And I let them have it on that one.
Yes. I knew that's
it was
why
a tersely worded.
That's why we're friends. I thought you were going to say turd for a minute. And I was about to back it up.
Anything's possible with Cody.
All right. That's the news we have for right now. When we come back, it's a Be Kind Rewind, and we're talking about the Goofy movie. That's coming up. So stay tuned. Okay, we're back, and we're here to talk about 1995's A Goofy Movie, 61% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Ridiculous.
Critics be negative.
I've never met anybody that doesn't like this movie.
Here's the little synopsis. Though Goofy always means well, his amiable cluelessness. Who wrote this? This is a terrible synopsis. His amiable cluelessness and klutzy pratfalls regularly embarrass his awkward adolescent son, Max. This is really bad. Who wrote this blurb? When Max's lighthearted prank on his high school principal finally gets his longtime crush, Roxanne, to notice him, he asks her on a date. Max's trouble at school convinces Goofy that he and the boy need to bond over a cross-country fishing trip like the one he took with his dad. when he was Max's age, which throws a kink in his son's plans to impress Roxanne. Directed by Kevin Lima and starring, just tons of people.
Bill Farmer.
All sorts of people. Bill Farmer, the voice of Goofy. Jason Marsden.
Tevin Campbell.
Kevin Lima himself, the director, as Lester. Tevin freaking Campbell.
And Paul Shore.
Pauly Shore.
Robert Shaw.
Is Bobby Zimmerowski. And by the way, okay, so
and don't forget Wallace Shawn.
Wallace
There
Shawn,
you
yeah,
go.
Wallace Shawn's in there.
He's probably
Princess Bride.
principal. Oh, well, we're gonna get there's more. There's a section of this cast that's like a who's who of like
animated
90s
movies.
90s stars.
Pat Buttram or Boutram.
No. Listen,
I know.
they got half of the people from Blossom on this show. Joey Lawrence and Jenna Von Oy,
Whoa.
who were both on Blossom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelly Martin from that one show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
course,
such a
that
big
one
show.
She was a big deal.
Life Goes On.
Life Goes On. That was it. Yeah. Anyways, yes, there's a lot of people in this movie. When it comes out, listen, I'm 18 years old when this movie comes out. I don't really remember it at all.
You are basically Max.
Maybe.
That's a pretty heavy accusation to throw at somebody.
I think what I'm going to do, because this is the weird thing about this is the first time I've ever seen it.
Ooh.
So I was excited about this because this will be the first time on a Be Kind Rewind where this was something fresh to me. For you guys, this is like beloved material.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Explain your experience with the movie.
Well, I mean, I'm 6 when it comes out, so.
But like, what does this movie mean to you?
Oh, this is just part of my childhood. I mean, we watched it and rewatched it, and I mean, you're talking about Disney, like beloved IP that Goofy is a part of that. And so you actually have a Goofy story, and you have it flushed out with like, oh, what's Goofy like on a day-to-day basis when he's not hanging out with Donald and Mickey? Mm-hmm. Oh, he actually has a real life. And so you get to experience it, and then you get all the nostalgia of going on a family vacation. And
Yeah. And Jackson, our Geek of the Round Table, was also our Disney Animation Geek of the Round Table. He appeared on that episode where you did talk a little bit about a Goofy movie. Explain the Goofy movie's role in your life, Jackson.
Well, I remember going to theaters and seeing it with my dad. I think he was living in Tulsa at the time. And, you know, back then, every movie you see is the best movie you've ever seen.
Yep,
you know,
of course.
You have no concept of what a bad movie is. And it was just something kind of like with Cody. I'd watch it pretty regular. And, you know, even now as an adult, I watch it on pretty much a yearly basis. I watched it last night ahead of this. And, you know, it was a movie that, as odd as it sounds, I was almost like, you know, I told my wife, I'm like, this means something when I show you this. Like, you know, your reactions and you know, how you take this are going to mean a lot for our relationship. And I said, so not right now, you know, you got to wait for this. And, you know, it's my favorite Disney movie. You know, it's sacred to me. You know, my dad was like, are you bringing all your merchandise in? And I said, it's an audio medium, so I don't think it's going to mean that much. But
Would have been a lot to me.
for
You have merch?
he is a Funko.
most definitely.
He is wearing a T-shirt with Powerline on it.
Well, it's actually Max.
Oh, is that Max as Powerline?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Inception. But no, you know, having, you know, my parents were divorced, so being able to have that time with my dad, and, you know, in this case, it was one-on-one. Max doesn't have a sibling like I did. And, you know, going on a family trip and having those experiences with a parent, and, you know, a parent that just wants to be in your life and is invested in you as a child and everything. And it just really hit home with me, and kind of factors into
Yeah, let's zero in on that a little bit because my parents also got divorced when I was young, and I remember every movie my dad took me to. So for me, those movies are like movies that are huge in my upbringing. Like the 3 movies I distinctly remember my father taking me to: Goonies, Rocky IV, and Ghostbusters.
No, yours are much better than mine.
I don't know, but I don't think it. What I'm saying is I don't think it matters.
Oh, I agree.
Like for me, those movies were important and probably would have been regardless.
Well, and my dad, he was somebody that, I mean, even now, it's an act of Congress to get him to lead the House. And, to get a little deep, he was an alcoholic all my childhood. So it was kind of one of those things where I think maybe part of me projected of like, I wish Goofy was my dad because my dad was goofy, but he also had this other side to him. And it was all these things that Goofy and Max were experiencing. And I'm like, Max doesn't appreciate any of these, but it would be wonderful to have that same experience.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So part of me wishes that we were like the same age when this came out because we're close enough in experience where I think if I'd have saw this when I was younger, I'd probably see it. I probably would have viewed it differently because watching it as the age I am at now and in ministry, I mean, we'll get to this, but they're both kind of dense. Both Max and Goofy have some. They can't get away from what their wants are long enough to see the other one, and so I thought that was really interesting. But we can talk about that in a little bit because I just wanted to I feel like Jackson wants to jump over the table and attack me right now.
Just
As he
simmering
should.
internally.
Because I have a completely different perspective as an adult now and in ministry, and when we get to like the biblical themes category, I'm going to blow minds.
Okay, so you want to?
I'm not wanting to jump there. I'm saying I'm going to blow minds.
That answers my next question. Do you want to stay true to the normal format?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. So is there anything broad about the movie you guys want, or have we introed it enough? Can we get into this? I don't know where to start here because I don't know what everyone else's experience level, like the listeners. I'm assuming a lot of our listeners, this is like a special movie to them, and I'm just lost. I don't even know where to start because I literally just watched this movie today.
So I mean, Goofy has a son, Max. Max is all about a girl and about a singer, Powerline.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the bulk of the place that you launch from.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want to jump the gun on anything. I'm going to kind of let you guys lead the course of the discussion because I don't want to railroad the discussion because I just saw the movie today. So why don't we just jump to favorite scenes?
All right.
What are your favorite scenes? I can start that since I saw it today. The possums, what's the name?
Lester's Possum Posse.
Lester's Possum Posse. That was hilarious. With the broken animatronic singing things. That was that was so nostalgia, but broken down nostalgia, like Showbiz Pizza or Chuck E. Cheese. Okay, the forerunner of Chuck E. Cheese was Showbiz. That's what I grew up with. Mm-hmm. And it had the animatronic animals, and half the time they wouldn't work. I laughed so hard through all of that.
The guy that introduced the Possum Posse, he's in every 1970s Disney animated classic, and so you get a brief 10 seconds with him, and it's thank you.
That just hit home though, because listen, I have a special place in my heart for animatronic singing bands because that's what I grew up with. And if I tried to take my son, who's probably getting closer to the same age maybe Max is in this movie, if I tried to take him to a Showbiz Pizza, if one still existed, he'd think it was the worst thing ever. Just like Max, he'd be like, "What is this?"
The possum hats were great.
The Possum Posse. That was excellent. So that was one of my favorite scenes. Who wants to go next?
I'll let Jack go.
Oh, no pressure, no pressure. Really, as a kid, Bigfoot hit home. I would always do the socks on my hand puppets.
I was going to say the Bigfoot
the
puppet
Bee Gees
show's
scene.
great.
Bigfoot was huge when I was a kid. That's taught me about the Bee Gees and.
Yep, that was the other scene I laughed out loud in. Was the Bigfoot scene and the whole scene where he puts on the Walkman, the headphones, and he starts listening to the Bee Gees.
Yeah,
that was pretty funny. I was down with that.
And then like he falls asleep on the car, and him and Goofy are both snoring, and Max is just staring wide-eyed.
I can remember. So I'd go visit my dad on weekends. That was another nostalgia thing for me. I'd go visit my dad on weekends when he was like a middle 20s college student. And I would sleep on his floor, and boy, he snores in the worst way.
Oh, right there with you.
Yeah, that was another scene where I was like, oh, it just hit me right in the feels.
Evidently, that's me snoring,
You were
according to
snoring.
my wife. So.
Yeah.
I've had to bunk with Cody before, and it's truth. I've recorded it and sent it to his wife and said, how do you live with this?
So when we did go to the Royals game and we had our buddy Kiefer, I think it would be comparable to Bigfoot and Goofy.
No, my eyes were bloodshot, and I was just sitting there.
What's the favorite scene?
So
For Cody.
I'm not going to go from my childhood perspective yet, but I will go from watching it today for like the 1000th rewatch. Very early on, you meet Goofy at like a Kmart-esque store, and he's doing photography, and then there's like a blue light special, and I'm like, oh, I remember these.
Oh, youngins.
It hit right in the feels.
Some of you listening are nodding your head. You're like, right on, Cody. Some of you need an explanation. So there used to be this place called Kmart. Yeah. Because it was like before Walmart, there was Kmart. And they had these things called blue light specials, which would be at just any given time. So your whole hope was while you were in the store, something would go on blue light special. And so they would make an announcement over the PA system. And they used to be like really good deals. They're like, is now on blue light special. And they would have one of those like cop lights that was blue, and you'd be able to see it. And everybody would flock. It was actually a genius bit of marketing.
It was.
And usually it was a pretty good deal. And people would it was Black Friday before Black Friday was a thing.
Was. And you also get to see Goofy's demeanor and his parenting style in the Kmart-esque scenes, and how Pete is the worst.
Yeah, what's Pete's deal?
He's just overbearing.
He is.
I've seen people try to call him the villain of the movie,
He's
and
not.
I don't go there. But
there is the weird part in the middle of the movie where he's like actively trying to deceive Goofy.
under your thumb.
Yeah, like where he knows. It seems like he kind of knows that it's not that bad, but he's trying to make Goofy think it's that bad.
Well, it's I believe Goofy says, "My son loves me," and then Pete says, "My son respects me."
Yeah.
And it's that difference in parenting philosophy. Would you rather be loved or respected?
First of all, someone in the writer's room, they were laying something out on the table with that, right? Mm-hmm. Someone in the writer's room was like, I'll show you, Dad. But yeah, like Pete was weird for me. That was a weird character.
But I mean, Pete is commonly a villain.
Yeah, I mean, I know
within the Goofy world.
It was odd. It was odd to make him. There was like this underlying kind of extra villainous thing that I was picking up, but maybe it was just because I know he's normally a villain. Although he's not so much in what my kids grew up with, which was the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse on Disney Junior. He's just kind of part of the crew. I mean, he's kind of a goober, but he's part of the crew. But then Goofy's kind of a goober.
Goofy very much is a goober.
Any other favorite things you'd like to talk about in the movie?
All of Powerline.
I was going to
songs,
say Powerline songs slap.
Oh my gosh.
all of them.
Dude, of course they do. Like, listen, there's something about like apparently Tevin Campbell in the black community that's my age. Like, there's like this upper millennial, lower Gen X age in the black community that just like they're fanatics of Tevin Campbell. And that's kind of where I was. From the moment I hear him start singing that first song in this movie, I was like, oh my gosh, it's Tevin Campbell. I love Tevin Campbell. I was just jammed. Like, you're right. Those songs are great.
Up until like recently in my adult life, I thought he was just a goofy movie singer.
Oh no. So
Yeah,
Tevin,
he was more than Powerline.
yeah. Oh yeah. So like, I remember Tevin Campbell. Oh man, I think that's like, I'm in 8th or 9th grade, maybe, when he comes out with a song. He's like a protege of Prince, and Prince writes him this song called Round and Round. So you guys should definitely listen to Round and Round by Tevin Campbell, because I think he's like 14 or something when that song comes out. Oh, amazing song. Absolutely killer. Just wonderful. And Tevin Campbell, I'm just here for anything Tevin Campbell. What's he doing now? Is he still singing? He should be.
Living off Powerline residuals.
He's getting the royalties,
I hope.
the Goofy movie royalties. Him and Pauly Shore.
Cash in, Holmes.
I did ask Cody to do the entire podcast with Pauly Shore's voice. He politely declined.
Listen, one of my favorite things about this movie was Pauly Shore, hearing his voice again. And it was like, he's the character of Bobby Zimmerowski, and I don't know what animal he's supposed to be, but he's clearly Pauly Shore playing Pauly Shore.
Oh, yeah.
And I was here for it. Such a welcome part of this movie for me, because there was this weird thing where we got a lot of Pauly Shore, and then everyone got tired of him at the same time, somewhere around like, the late 90s.
I was going to say, I thought this was the last thing he did.
No, maybe not. When did Son-in-Law come out? That was a great movie.
I thought that came out.
Was that
earlier.
before? That was probably before. Yeah, he's probably on his downward trend. Anyways, I was here for it. From the minute I heard his voice, and I mean, instantly, it's Pauly Shore. Like, munching on some grind ditch.
Yeah, so 93 Son-in-Law, 92 Encino Man, and 96 is Biodome. So,
Yeah, that's the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
96, Biodome. He does like one called Jury Duty. That's just, I mean, it was just awful.
One of the few I've seen until Cody showed me Son-in-Law.
Jury Duty is one of the worst movies I've seen in a theater. Like, that's in my top 5 of just worst movies I've paid to go see in a theater.
That's got Tia Carrere from Wayne's World, right?
I don't even remember. Does
Okay.
it?
Well,
I blocked it out.
That's what my
it was
brain
such a
has
bad
told
memory.
me.
Poor
but
Tia Carrere
apparently-
deserved better than that. Tia Carrere was trying to capitalize on that Wayne's World
I was
fame.
going to say Mike Myers to Pauly Shore, or Pauly Shore to Mike Myers, however the progression went.
yeah.
I found everything, every scene that Bobby was in, Pauly Shore as Bobby was delightful for me.
They use him the exact right amount. Cody and I were talking about, like, is the sequel going to come up in these discussions? And
There's a second one.
He's
How
all
many are
through-
there?
Two.
Okay.
And the dip in quality between them is pretty drastic.
It's like a Lion King 2.
I've seen it since then, and I've begun to appreciate it, but it's not even close.
There's more Pauly in there.
Yeah, he's all throughout it, and I don't even remember if he's in it. I would have to defer to the cell phone to know if he's even in it, but Bobby is all throughout that. And
Oh, you mean they might have gotten someone to pretend to be Pauly Shore pretending to be Bobby?
yeah, it may have been a Pauly Shore imitator, if by that point Pauly Shore wasn't the Pauly Shore imitator.
So an extremely goofy movie comes out in 2000.
Okay.
They do get Pauly to come
Okay.
back.
I mean, he wasn't busy.
I'm glad they could pay his price.
But he probably did ask for too much.
But with
What? Pat Benatar's in the second one?
is she the librarian?
I don't
Mrs.
know. It
Marple?
doesn't list.
Is she Miss Marple? I've never seen this movie. I'm just echoing Jack.
I'll have to actually click on IMDb now.
All right.
It's due for a rewatch, but it's still Goofy movie. Mount St. Helens, extremely goofy movie. I mean, there's a drop in contact, but best scene is the car raft scene.
Yeah.
Where they finally have it out. They finally, kind of say their piece to each other. And then you have the perfect cast. That still gets to me emotionally.
Yeah. Let's talk about this for a minute. This seems like a good spot. This movie is shockingly deep. It has a lot to say about fathers and sons.
Still moves me as an adult.
So I'm watching this movie today, and I'm look, it's a cartoon. You can tell it's an older cartoon. But as I'm watching it, I'm just continually impressed by, wow, this movie has some real deep things to say under the surface of a goofy. Mm-hmm. It's a goofy movie, and I'm not just saying the title of the movie. It's goofy. It's kind of silly, but at the same time, oh man, it has some things to say, and it was shockingly deep for me at times. There was some times where I was like, oh, this is deep right now, where I was actually afraid about what one of the characters was going to say. Mm-hmm. There's some deep moments, and if you've ever had, for people like us, especially Jackson, where you were at some point in your lives separated from your dad, either by distance or by emotions. Mm-hmm. There were parts of this movie that were actually I was tense, where I'm like, oh, what's about to happen? But even for someone like Cody, who grew up with his nuclear family, I'm sure there must be a lot in there that resonates too, because he would always get along with our parents.
Yeah, and I mean, going through this, watching it as a kid and now watching it as an adult, I can look back and say, there's times I'm a little bit like Max in my teen years, where I'm taking things for granted. I'm trying to do my own thing, and not to the extent that Max does it. Max is the worst.
Are we going to get into the worst villain in Disney movie history?
Let's hold on. Let's talk about scenes. Are there any scenes that you think could have been better? Let's get past the scenes first. Is there anything that you think could have been better in the movie, or is it just perfect in your eyes? I'm really asking, because I think I wouldn't be surprised.
Maybe you elongate some of the scenes just because he does a lot with Max in a very short time period.
This movie's compact.
It moves.
Hour and 20 minutes.
Oh yeah. They are, let's see. They go monster trucking, baseball game, Carl's yarn house, a bat cave. Goofy might have killed a mime. I mean,
did you get the theme park on there?
The amusement park. Yeah. And so, there's a lot that happens in the Goofy movie, in just 2 minutes. That's literally 2 minutes of the movie. Yeah. Is all these things happen, and they they go to a hotel with cool water beds so you can see.
I looked for that hotel for many years when I was old enough to actually do anything about it. I'm sure those are long gone now.
I'm going to be honest. I did not view this movie, since I knew this was such a special movie to you guys. When I watched this movie, I didn't really watch it with a critical eye. I just kind of wanted to take it in. And for me, I knew I was watching a cartoon, and so just knowing I'm watching a cartoon that was made for kids, I that just alone made me not watch it with that kind of a critical eye. And was just kind of continually impressed with it. It's just much deeper emotional feelings I was getting from the movie than I thought I would.
That's because you're meant to feel.
Yeah, and so I don't really have anything bad to say about it. I'm super impressed by it. I'm super impressed that that Disney company made a movie starring Goofy, and that it had any sort of emotional resonance in it, let alone what it ends up with, which is, I can't think of another Disney movie that has some deeper themes playing out kind of under the surface, under the radar. Like, yeah, we know like Lion King has them, but they're not hiding it, you know? Like, I'm not saying they're hiding it here. It's just it's not, you know,
it's happening in a goofy universe.
It's not Simba talking to his dad with the swelling of the music. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's parts of those movies where they're playing with big themes where they're like lambasting it. They're putting it right out there for you. I was impressed.
Deep, but not heavy-handed.
Yeah, I'm impressed with this movie in that it's a goofy movie. Like, it was fun. It was kind of silly. And yet at the same time, underneath the surface, it's almost like you would watch this movie. I could see a kid watching this movie back in 1995 and then like waking up, you know, 6 years later and going, hey, you know, like, oh, I get it. Like, it's that kind of thing. And I'm just impressed by it. I'm just really impressed.
Well, and the complaint I usually have for musical Disney movies, I don't know if you would call this a musical, but is too much music. But I was running through the track list in my head, and I think it's like all the major points have songs, but they don't overdo it. The songs aren't overly long.
Yeah.
Definitely some memorable ones, of course, but
I would definitely call it a musical. But you're right. Like, compare this to, for instance, Spirited, the Christmas movie that came out with Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds, where there's like seemingly 6 songs within the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's a tough get through. I wasn't on that episode, but Cody and I talked about it, and it is a song about every 2 seconds. And
the songs in this are really good. Even by like today's standards, I was thinking, man, this is good. It's really good. I'm just overall just kind of impressed by a goofy movie.
I was anxious to hear because Cody said it was your first time watching. I'm like, this can go one of 2 ways.
Well, you know, and obviously I'm trying to watch it from a standpoint of I'm trying to watch it with innocence, you know, like I would have when I was a kid. But I can't help but get lost in some of the deeper themes when they're happening. And so it was hard for me to keep judging it on that plane of existence, because here I am an adult, I'm a minister. So too, like, we might as well just start talking about this now, about because I don't know what category this is going to fit in, the father-son stuff. Do you want to talk about this now, or do you want to wait until biblical stuff?
I'm good with waiting till biblical stuff.
Okay, let's wait. The We Got Spirit Award. Did the movie have any biblical references?
Oh, snap, it did.
Right now.
I'm going to say that this basically is the whole Bible. I just went there.
Sorry, let me pick up the pieces of my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we are Max. Mm-hmm. That we are constantly trying to live our own life. Mm-hmm. And in this case, it's not quite perfect, but God is goofy.
Yeah, I disagree.
No, listen up. You're interrupting this great point. And so when we are in the car float scene, what does Goofy say, Jackson, about Max wanting to live his life?
I just want to be a part of it.
So you have within this God's perfect will, or Goofy's perfect will. Literally, first scene of the movie, Max wakes up. Goofy's like, you know what? I will take you to school. And Max is like, nope. And so you have God's permissible will. Here we are. We're just choosing our own way. God's perfect will, he probably would have got to school safe. Instead, he does his own thing, slips on marbles, falls all over, falls down the stadium steps, looks like a fool.
Sings a great song.
He does sing a great song.
Yeah.
And so there's good and bad things that can happen within the permissible will, but there is a perfect will where things work out just great. And, you know, Goofy's just constantly just wanting to be a part of Max's life. And just like Max, or just like Goofy, God is wanting to be a part of our lives. But yet, we are like Max and we push him away. We run the opposite direction. We are embarrassed by our faith, or we are whatever, or okay, it's beneficial to us right now, or oh, I got a case of the feels, just like Max did when he's eating the soup. He's like, oh, I kind of like my dad. And so we go in these spurts. And yet, God, what does Jesus tell Peter when Peter decides to become a disciple? I will make you fishers of men, and I will teach you how to do that. And then Goofy teaches Max how to be a fisher, and he fishes for men and saves lives. And so
he literally fishes for men.
So literally,
like the perfect cast.
I think that there are a lot of strong biblical themes, just because a lot of the Bible is about a loving father and either a prodigal son or a son that's jealous after the prodigal son returns, however you want to word it. And both of those can be encapsulated within who Jack says is the worst villain in all of the Disney universe. And this is including a universe that has Scar, who kills James Earl Jones, becomes a fascist dictator, ruins the whole ecosystem. But no, Max is the worst, and we are the worst without God, and Max is the worst without Goofy until he gets more goofy.
Enlighten me. Max is the worst villain?
Absolutely.
Okay, explain.
He's just... He never redeems himself in this movie. It's always just, selfish, want what I want. And then by the end of it, it's not that they come to any kind of understanding. It's Goofy's like, okay, well, I guess we got to get you to that concert. He doesn't end up going fishing. And I know at the end they say, well, I'm doing something with my dad when he goes back to Roxanne's, but he's just, and especially in the second one as well, like there's just no appreciation for anything that Goofy's trying to do for him. And I feel like, and that was something I was talking with Cody about, was I never really had that break from my parents. I never had that oh, these guys are lame, who are they, too cool for school type thing. So maybe I'm deficient in that I don't know that experience. So I just see it as, you've got these awesome parents that just want to hang out with you. And how is that a bad thing?
Okay. Well,
and I will also go back to the perfect will, permissible will thing. Like, even though Max does the permissible will thing and it still works out, Goofy still uses it. Like, God still uses our mistakes, our shortcomings, our own ignorant wills. And so,
okay. All right.
But yes, I did go through a bit of that phase. Not like, oh, I hate you guys, but it's like, like I wanted to be independent. I wanted to do my own thing.
Okay. Well, I have a few things here. This is, first of all, I'm a little surprised that's your guys' take on Max. I figured, especially Jackson, with the history, that as a young person he would have identified with Max more and thought and had a problem with Goofy.
Never at any point.
Okay, because here's what I want to say. Watching it today for the first time, Goofy is brutal. He's just as dense as Max. Max is a chip off the old block. Goofy, granted, it's motivated. Like, Goofy is motivated by his love for Max.
Motivated love.
I think what this movie has to say is even deeper than maybe you guys have talked about. I think this is a movie about love and what it means to love. Because Goofy at the beginning of the movie is just as clueless. He wants to do all the things that he enjoyed doing with his dad. Never once is it about, well, what does Max enjoy? Like, we know that intrinsically, if you're married, you understand that, like, you're going to be wildly different than the person you're married to, most likely. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna have to get into the things that she likes. You know what I'm saying? Like, we understand the love. And so, like, watching this movie, I'm writing, it's in my notes. Goofy's brutal. He's so dense.
Oh, there's no communication, but like you said, Pete constantly is planting seeds of
Yeah,
doubt.
okay, by that point, before Pete's even a factor in the movie, both of them are so wrapped up in themselves that they can't really find this middle ground, and that's what the movie's about them getting the place. Now, I do agree that Max never quite gets there, but that brings up my second point, which is like, oh man, does that resonate? How old do we get until we finally look back? Like, there are so many times now where, like, look, my teen years were rough. I had a rough time with my parents, my teen years. And now I look back so often and say, man, I wish I could go back to relive that, knowing what I know now, not because I want to relive like bad times, but because I want to react to the bad times better. Mm-hmm. Like, now I can look back and so clearly see how dense and self-absorbed I was, even when I thought I was the victim. You know what I'm saying? And like Max thinks he's the victim, right? It's the same thing. So like there's this really clear story about a father who's kind of doing what fathers do. Like, listen, we hear all the time, I coach basketball for years. I saw plenty of kids who were playing basketball, didn't want to, that their dad clearly loved the sport. And it was tense, man. There was always tension, and enough so that watching this movie made me feel a little bit better about my parenting skills, because my son plays soccer. I'm not into soccer. I loved basketball, but I haven't like tried to force him into that. I haven't tried to force my loves on my kids. I would rather them find their own loves and then like try to take part in them. So there's something about like being a teenager that this movie, oh man, it brought up all of that. But I also see Goofy as just kind of dense, maybe more than you guys have let
I
on.
see Goofy again. So if I'm sticking with my biblical imagery, who is love in the Bible? Oh, wait. God is love. And Goofy's just motivated by love.
I mean,
now
I like your allegory, your metaphor, but Goofy is not a great character at first.
Early on, Pete plants the seed of...
This is before Pete.
No, it's not. At Kmart, he says your kid could end up in a gang, running the streets, running amok because you don't have any respect in your house. And then the principal calls.
But
the electric chair.
But Pete is just the seed. He's planting.
I said he plants seeds. That's all I said.
But he's planting the seed of this idea that his son is doing something dastardly. Pete has nothing to do with Goofy's plan.
Goofy wasn't doing the plan before.
Goofy's plan is all, but right, his plan is still coming from him. Listen, I wrote down this quote. There's a part with the map, and Goofy says this to Max: "Careful, you'll wrinkle my past and our future." Mm-hmm. That is an inherently selfish thing. No, that's your past. That has nothing to do with Max. Like, you see what I'm saying? Goofy had the mindset from the beginning that Max was going to be into all the things that he was into when he was a kid. And dads make this mistake a lot. There's a lot of dads out there like this.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the biblical themes. We have traditions. And how dare you step on the traditions?
Absolutely. I'm just trying to point out that Goofy is as much at fault here.
As a parent, you have responsibilities and you have the authority to set boundaries and guidelines. And from my perspective, Goofy sets good boundaries, good guidelines. And if you mess up the map, you don't have MapQuest.
Go ahead, Jackson.
Well, and we may have gotten a little too far from it, but does this trip happen if the principal doesn't call? That's my curiosity, is because it seems like at the beginning, Goofy's kind of letting Max have his own life. And, he's like, hey, who's this guy? When he's referencing Powerline. And then the seeds by Pete, and then the call from the principal. And suddenly it's like, oh, I've got to pull back on the reins. I've got to show... really step it up as a parent, become more involved, and then the idea for the trip comes along.
Okay, that's fair.
And as a child, he did a trip similar with his dad, and so he's like, well, this could be a good bonding experience. I did things with my parents that they did as kids, And some of those things I liked, some of them I didn't like.
Like, look, okay, I'm just going to tell you, let me tell you where this hits me. Maybe this is why I'm reacting to this. I got to go to my dad's every other weekend. That was the time I got with him. At an age where you're, man, like from age 4 on. And that time, and this is like, okay, let me preface all this to saying I love my dad. Okay. I know my dad loves me. All right. This is by no means to throw my father under the bus. But back then, my dad was really into cars. I told you he was a racer. And like I would go to his house and he would go out and work on his cars. He was always doing the things he was about, right? He would encourage me to come be about him. But being the son of a father who he didn't live with and therefore grew to be kind of angry about it, I didn't want anything to do with the things my dad liked. He was into cars. I don't care about cars. And then, like my dad, maybe because he would probably say he was immature too. He would like say there were little barbs. He would say things like, I would have my comic books. Y'all know I love comic books. Like, what are you wasting time with those for? Come out and learn something about cars. You know, like you see what I'm saying. So when I see Goofy in this movie, and I'm like nodding my head. I'm like, yeah, that's the mistake. Now, as I've said before, Max is not a great character, and I can look back in my childhood and obviously say, hey, I wasn't reacting to any of it right. I understand that there was some part of my dad when he's trying to convince me to go do car stuff with him that is motivated by his wanting to be a part of my life.
Yeah.
Like I get that. But this is where I'm coming from with this movie. And I grew up, man, by the time I get into my upper teen years, I'm not going, like, by the time I was old enough to decide to go visit my dad, I stopped going. And man, I like, look, I'm not proud of that. I wish I could go back and fix that. It's just watching this movie brings all that up for me.
Okay, so I can definitely see your lens that you're looking at it through. And to an extent, it's valid. And especially for you. Like, from my point of view as like someone that was constantly around their dad, but my dad also didn't know how to necessarily show that affection. And so it came out through like, well, we can do sports, or you could come out and watch me work on a car because he's a mechanic.
Yep.
So some of those, like we rely on our strengths for relationship building. And sometimes it moves past that, and it can be about anything and anywhere, anytime. And sometimes we get stuck there. Now for me in this movie, it's clear Goofy hasn't taken his kid fishing, that he doesn't fish that much. Max says, I don't even know how to fish. What is this? A stick? And so, like,
it's a good observation.
It seems like this is just a one-off for Goofy.
Well, he's going under the understanding of, Pete's just down telling me my kid's going to end up a gang, and then the electric chair. And it's like, all right, so I'm going to throw what my dad did at me because I didn't end up in the electric chair, and, that'll work. And it was something that kind of like he hinted at that he probably didn't plan on doing, and he'd kind of strayed away from. And to kind of pick up on your side of things, of that you kind of were resistant towards the things that your dad was interested in, I feel like maybe I went the other way, and that kind of explains my loyalty to Goofy and my abhorrence towards Max of like, I adopted all my dad's sports teams, and it was like if he mentioned something to me, it was like, okay, well, that's the coolest thing ever, because he likes it. And it was always, I think, because my dad, he's not a real, like, I know my dad loves me, same as you said, but he's not the type to tell you, and I'm not the type to ask. So a lot of it was that, like, hey, I'm going to like everything that you like, and, these will be more activities for us to do together, even if I'm just kind of faking the funk, so to speak. But it's to get that admiration, is to get that acknowledgement and everything like that. And I mean, I had a sibling to complete compete with. So it was all, and we had that weekend together, and
yeah. And when I understand that too. So like my dad got remarried and had kids, and that was hard for me. Like if I'm being honest, you feel like you're kind of forgotten when that happens. Like he remarried. He's still married to this day to my stepmom, who's just a lovely, lovely lady, lovely person. And they had kids, and there was always something about that made me feel a little jilted, which, like, because I was a stupid kid and immature.
Well, but it's a natural feeling, I'm trying to reconcile this, and now there's competition.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, before we get any further, Max, Goofy, like the problems they had, this is why the genealogies are in the Bible. The genealogies give us like a good timeline and a family tree, so to speak, in a broad sense, but they're also there for a very important reason, that we understand that the brokenness from the fall, that's how it travels down through genealogies, through genetics, through our family trees. And it comes from our parents. And like, I tell young kids this all the time when they're upset with their parents, because we work with teenagers, and I tell them, I was like, hey, this happens. Everyone's a little bit broken by their parents.
Oh, yeah.
But the motivation for most parents is love. But understand they were broke by their parents, and they were broke by their parents, and so on and so on and so on. And when you understand that, you could look at your own parents and be more forgiving. And that's where, like, I want to say this before we get too much farther, because I've been really personal here. I love my dad. I love my mom. They were not perfect. They made a lot of mistakes, but I can look back now and understand, like, everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes with my kids, and my hope is that I love them well enough that that's what lasts. As the Bible says, love covers a multitude of sins.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I could probably go back through my memories and pick out scenes of like heartbreak and things that didn't make sense and that were hurtful. But if you ask me like about my parents, I'm going to mention the good stuff first. I'm going to mention how loving they were and are. And just like you said, love covers a multitude of sins. It covers a lot of the inadvertent and advertent heartaches that we pass along generation to generation.
I don't know if it was because the relationship with my parents was such a difficult one for me, but having kids now, I fear, that's one of my big fears, is that I'm going to do or say something in a moment where I don't have complete control of myself, like where I'm not guarding my tongue or guarding my mouth, what's coming out of it, that I'm going to do or say something that will put a wedge. I don't want any wedges between me and my children. But at any rate, we should probably move on and talk about the movie, even though like this is is what this movie inspires.
The big theme, or the big thing that you can look at in this movie, is the father-son dynamic, which is a dynamic that is constant throughout the Bible, and is something that most of us can relate to, either having a consistently present father, having a father that you only got to see somewhat, or not even having a father. And it's going to affect the way that you view and engage with this movie, just because it is a major theme of the movie. And so it like you said, it operates very deep for a goofy movie.
Is there anything else we want to say biblically or Jesus-like things, or do we want to move on? We've spent a lot of time talking about this.
Not necessarily Jesus-like things. I mean, there's a lot of good and bad and everywhere in between with this.
Well, let's move on to our in-game questions here. Who's the winner of this movie? Like, who wins the movie? Like, whose career is most boosted that this movie exists?
Oh, I thought we were talking about in character.
Well, you can do it in character if you want. Like, but either or. Usually we talk about like an actor or someone who's involved with the development of the movie.
I will say Tevin Campbell. It's the reason Cody and I know that name. Powerline still resonates with people. Obviously, there's merchandise out there, Funko Pops, things like that. Because I always thought, like, this is my thing. This is my niche. Maybe people know about it, but it was just one of those forgotten Disney movies. And then as I've gotten older and, I've talked to people about my love for the movie, I'm like, no, this is maybe one of the most underrated Disney movies out there. And, a hidden gem that's got quite the following.
A diamond in the rough, if you will.
Yeah. I'm also going to say Tevin Campbell because you guys knowing who Tevin Campbell was a shock to me. I've just always been under the impression that Tevin Campbell was this like under the radar pop star who never really quite blew up. But then we start talking about this movie and I'm doing some study and I'm looking around like, oh, people know who Tevin Campbell is. Like, I had no idea that this movie was a thing. And so seeing the fandom of this movie and understanding that there's like this whole generation of people who are big fans of Tevin Campbell because of this movie, I'm here for Tevin Campbell love.
Well, and Eye to Eye is just it's a perfect song.
It is.
Wow.
I mean, as a young adult without like the access to that song, I'm still singing it in my head. And now as an older young adult, I do have access to it, and I play it from time to time.
Thank you, Spotify. I Amazoned the soundtrack. This was one of the first soundtracks that I sought out. Just
all right. Cody, who's the winner of the movie?
Robert Frederick Paulson III.
PJ?
PJ is the winner of the movie because he goes on and has a great voice acting career, doing Pinky and the Brain.
You're going to make me look up Robert Paulson.
Animaniacs. He was Carl and Jimmy Neutron.
Oh, my gosh.
And
he's in a ton of stuff. Land Before Time. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
What?
And I just thought that name was from Fight Club.
Veggie Tales in the House. He went Christian.
Kind of like a Frank Welker type thing where he's just got his hand in everything.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
The list of movies is impressive.
Knowing his name now because of this movie, he's the winner for me.
I can't argue with that. But that's an impressive resume. I'm looking at it, and there's just too many movies to even list.
So
Tons of animated movies.
Who are we saying in movie wins it? Because I'm probably putting Max, oddly enough, in that.
Goofy?
Because Max...
Or Roxanne. I'm going Roxanne.
Well, Roxanne's, man, like from the beginning... Okay, this is the part of the movie that's not very realistic. Because I can attest that all your crushes weren't into you.
Yeah.
And that's where I get the winning is like he felt I've got to do all this to get her.
Max in character is clearly the winner here, right?
Absolutely.
The girl liked him all along, which never happened.
And even liked his yuck.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the whole lesson that he doesn't clearly get, apparently, because he still covers his mouth when he yucks at the end. And it's like, dude, you don't get it. She's into the yuck.
Well, and the fact that he lies to her from the beginning of their relationship, if you can call it that. And she's like, oh, that's fine.
No repercussions. She's totally into him.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Max is clearly the winner.
It is, I guess, yeah.
I've won one. Took 4 times, but I've won.
The Go Get 'Em Next Time award. Who puts in the most? Is there someone who's a disappointment in this movie? Please don't say Pauly Shore. Please don't say Pauly Shore. I don't know. I'm really not ready to utter anything negative about this movie. It was all kind of delightful.
Maybe the girl that ends up with Pauly Shore?
Oh, Stacy. Yeah. Talk to me, baby.
Okay. All right. Yeah. She's the loser. That's Jenna Von Oy, by the way.
Because that's
That
her
is.
Of
future?
Blossom.
Is that what you're...
Of Blossom fame.
Do you think Robert Zimmerowski doesn't have much to look forward to in life?
It is going one of like 3 ways.
Listen, Robert Zimmerowski clearly grows up to be an amazing director. He's all about the media, man.
That's one way. There's a way where he stays at home and never leaves his basement because nothing ever works out right.
Okay, but
And
then
then
he
the-
starts a website called Ain't It Cool News and blows up.
Yeah, I could see him lucking his way into millions.
Or he just takes part of the devil's lettuce and just lives that
I
lifestyle.
wasn't going to go there, but you brought that out.
Clearly, the Possum Park's the loser. They were already running on fumes, man. That Possum Park was falling apart.
I would agree with you that there's no like, oh, if this was better, this was more. I was always curious about Roxanne. She never shows back up other than one episode of maybe that House of Mouse or something like
yeah.
that. But she's never seen. She's not in the second one.
You know,
she's not
Max
even
doesn't end up with
referenced.
Roxanne. He doesn't end up with her.
Evidently not.
Oh, that sucks.
And I don't think he
Shooting
chases
down my
it.
dreams.
Well, I expected like, oh, is she going to show up in the sequel, and continuity in Disney movies and everything, but I don't believe she's even referenced in that. They do question the why are we always wearing gloves, and
I questioned that watching
Robert
it.
picks up the glove and looks underneath it, and I wasn't quite ready for that because
Is this the most final question? Is this the most underrated Disney movie of all time?
It's up there.
I can't think of one that's more. I feel like nowadays everything gets that Disney machine behind it to where nothing's underrated. Even movies that are here today, gone tomorrow, like Big Hero 6. That was everywhere, but now nowhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't
This is
stand up.
The weird thing about this movie is like you can tell that it was an afterthought to the company. Don Hahn, the producer of this, actually says it wasn't even a B movie; it was a C movie.
How dare you, Don?
Well, but he was saying that that's what they thought of the movie.
You don't know movies, Don.
It's not even produced by what was then known as Walt Disney Feature Animation.
Yeah.
It was developed independently of the company's other features using satellite studios, and it was billed as a Disney movie tune. So yeah, like Disney just kind of like washed their hands of it, like in development. It's an afterthought.
Yeah, it's not like getting the Lion King treatment when it comes out.
But, here it is, however many years after its release, and I think you'd have to say it's a cult classic. Has a lot of fans. Goofy movie merchandise is a hot ticket.
I was
at
going to say
conventions and retailers. I mean, you're wearing a T-shirt dedicated to it. When did you buy that T-shirt?
Several years ago.
at Planet Comic-Con, there was a guy dressed up as Powerline. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so, yeah, you still see people all about the Goofy movie. Like Jackson said, he has some Funkos from this hit.
Well,
movie.
they put out a power line. If they ever put out a whole line, my kids' college fund's in danger. But
Director Kevin Lima says, we didn't have a lot of money. We didn't have Lion King budget. We were a ragtag group. He said they relied on Disney animation outposts in Paris and Australia to do much of the heavy lifting, as well as outside studios in Spain and Canada. They had production setbacks, caused them to miss their initial release date. But when the film was finally finished, he said everyone involved knew they'd made something special. Farmer, the voice of Goofy, took his then 5-year-old son to an early screening of an unfinished version. As we left, he was crying a little bit. And I said, "What's the matter, buddy? Didn't you like the movie?" And he said, "When Goofy was going over the waterfall, I thought that was you."
Aww.
Like, this is a deep, resonating film. I'm going to call it a film.
cinematic experience.
So there's nothing left to do but rate it. How many out of 10?
I'll let Jack go first.
15.
That's what I assumed from Jack. I'll be critical and go a solid 8.5.
You know, there was a number in my head, and I also was going to go 8.5. But for a movie like, I don't know, I can't think of anything animated right now I'd give something higher to.
Yeah, like, it's just an hour and 20 minutes, and it goes by fast. But it hits all the good beats, has a pretty good story. I mean, for me, it could have been a little bit longer, and that would be the only thing I really knock on it. So,
well, this is a movie that's hard to put a rating on because I feel like I'm giving it an 8.5 because I'm comparing it to just movies.
Yeah.
But like, if you put out there what they attempted to do, like it's a goofy movie, and so the finished product's a 10. I mean, it's a 10 out of 10.
Or a 15.
There's no version of this movie that could have been better, right?
Oh, no.
It doesn't overstay its welcome. I mean, everything we see nowadays, it's like 3.5 hour long epic, and you know, it gets you where you need to go, and then as soon as it gets there, it doesn't linger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just here to say I'm very impressed. You guys are right. This is something.
It is.
This is something. And I don't even know how to put it fully into words other than this is something.
So to now sidetrack from this conversation. Just because we had talked about it on the last podcast, I did go watch Megan, and I will give it a good positive review. So if you ever watch it, we can fully review it. I am encouraging of the watching, although adult humor in adult situations.
My wife went and watched it. I did not.
What?
And she said she said it was hilarious.
Literally, they had me
Like, not intentionally.
I think
she said it was good.
I think it's supposed to be tongue in cheeky in parts, and then like it kind of like the way it ends. It's like, ooh.
I'll probably watch it.
The crawling on all fours in the wilderness in the preview, I was like, no, thanks.
Creepy. It's
creepy. Too much for me.
All right, Jackson, thanks for coming by. Pleasure as
appreciate
always, fellow geek of the round table. Cody,
I'm here.
you're here. Thank you so much for listening. You know the drill. Follow, subscribe, review, all that stuff. Share us.
Yeah.
It helps. We'll see you next week.